Well, hello everybody, and thanks everybody for taking the time to zoom in here with everybody. And I joined Gabe and everybody else, and even Jennifer, in saying that that was an experience to get through. But I'm excited to be here with everybody, and I want to start off by taking an opportunity to make sure that we say a big thank you to Mr. Gabriel Valdez for setting up this webinar, and the countless others that he has set up. This is the second one that I've had the good fortune of being a part of, and they are just fantastic collections of speakers and sources, and so I'm very grateful to Gabriel for setting those up. What I've put back here on the screen is really just it's a slightly tweaked version of some slides that I used when I led a PD that I called Twitter 101 back last fall, and I've tweaked it to include just a couple of things that I think first-time users to Twitter need to know. There's nothing wrong with starting at the very beginning, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I know that we're going to have some of our other great panelists that are going to chime in and share some screens and share some tips as well. But I wanted to start off with this quote here. On Sunday mornings, and I'll talk about Twitter chats or myself or one of the panelists to talk about Twitter chats here in a few moments. But on Sunday mornings, I'm a co-moderator for the Sunday chat, and that's at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard. Every Sunday, we did just have our last one. We usually take the summer break off, but once we start back up in August, I hope that you'll join us. We had the good fortune of hosting an educator named Aaron Hogan several months ago now, I guess, and this was something that he shared with me, and it really stuck with me. And I've tried to share it with other teachers in trying to explain why getting on Twitter can be such a positive thing for you. So Twitter's not going to change your life. The educators that you meet there will. And out of the bullets that I've got listed over here on the right, that's probably been the biggest game changer for me. There are legitimate friendships that have begun and have expanded through Twitter. Incredible networking, people that I probably never would have had the chance to get to talk to if Twitter didn't exist. And I think of two of the panelists here. I think about Gabriel Valdez and how he and I first met on Twitter. And I think about Adam, one of those great Kansas educators that we have out there, and the interaction that he and I have had. We've literally never met face to face. Gabriel and I have never met face to face. But these are people that I trust and that I have incredible respect for, and Twitter's the reason for that. So Gabe, do you want me to kind of keep going, or do you want me to stop, or do you want people to just kind of chime in, or how do you want to do this?
You can keep going or chime in, or I'm just going to monitor the chat and the Facebook, so go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to, since we do have a lot of people here that are new to Twitter, if you've had an opportunity to create your handle, I just wanted to talk a little bit about crafting your Twitter bio. And I know that this may sound inconsequential, maybe even vapid to some people, but for me, as somebody who doesn't follow everybody, I try not to follow every single person. The Twitter bio, I try to read that. And if I go in and I see that there's nothing listed or a very small amount, a lot of times I may not follow you initially. I kind of want to know who you are. And, as we just saw with our Zoom bomb, sometimes it's hard to trust, it's hard to trust everybody out there in the internet, and certainly in the Twitter sphere as well. So, I wanted to try to push the idea of crafting a Twitter bio and some things to think about. I tend to think that it's nice that if you're going to be, I use Twitter almost primarily for professional development and for growth and education. And so I want to make sure that I put in there that I am a teacher, what I teach, and then everything else is going to be some ancillary background. But I feel like, making sure that you put it in there that you're an educator is going to be pretty key. Make sure that you choose your picture wisely. It's going to be the first thing that people are going to see. And then from that point forward, you have 160 characters to tell your story, and it does cut off. So I know that there's been times where I wanted to include a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I've had to pick and choose what I'm going to put in there. So what do you feel like is the most important thing that people know as they start to follow you? I'm curious with some of the other panelists that are in here, the kind of thought that you put in to crafting your Twitter bio. Was that something that you put a lot of thought in? And if so, what suggestions do you offer for that?
Well,
I tried to, I tried to add in some information about myself, about who I work with, my name is Nancy Pinchett, by the way. And who I work with online, what companies that I might be an ambassador for, or I might be certified for, just so people who are looking for certain information, that they can, if they search for that, they can find me through that hashtag as well.
Yeah, Nancy, I think that's a good point. And I know me, I'm relatively new to Twitter. I created an account a couple years ago, but I really honestly didn't do anything with it until I went to Texas in November, and I went to the National Council of the Social Studies conference, and I presented there, and I had people walking up to me afterwards going, "Are you on Twitter? Are you on Twitter? I want to follow you. I want to see what you're doing. You've got such great stuff." And so I thought, well, I guess I should do something with this account. So I think it was the end of November, beginning of December, when I really started to, I put up my first post, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to give this a try. And, I think what I did when I made my profile was I did profile, research, I guess. I went and I looked at a lot of different, what people were putting up primarily. And I tried to keep it to the fact that I was a wife and a mom, and, the fact that I was an educator, certainly, and then try to hone in on, kind of who I was as an educator, to give people an idea of, who I was and what I stood for and who I belonged to. And it's been interesting to me to kind of watch my follows and my profile grow. I mean, I went from, I want to say, I think the joke was maybe I had 20 people when I started, and as of this morning, I think I have like 942 in just a few months. And I'm sure other people have had, a lot more successes, certainly with follows in that. In looking at building my network, and to your point, Kevin, talking about the people that you follow and people who you want to follow you, I'm pretty excited about the network that I've created for myself, and certainly the relationships that I've forged as a part of that.
Yeah, and I think to go along with that as well, I like to put in my bio the networks that I kind of want to be a part of, and that I want to search out for more that are doing those things. So a lot of history, a lot of social science, coaching, not necessarily athletics, but instructional coaching. So I put in my bio what I think is going to be reciprocal to what the networks I kind of want to get into. And I think the banner picture is a huge thing as well, not just your profile picture, but what are you going to show in that little banner picture there? I think it's that's the first thing, Kevin was saying, that's the first thing people see. And you could say so much with the picture, right? So that's kind of where I go with my bio.
Just to kind of chime in on that, I think it's, as we talk through what you're looking for as you begin to search for people to follow, that bio is that first impression so many times that you have. And, I'm going through the process where I'm going to be changing my bio a little bit. I have a real basic quote right now, but as I have started to grow in understanding the power and importance of networking through Twitter, I've come to the realization, I need to do a better job of what people see when they see my profile, so they understand where I come from and what I stand for and what my networking is. And so I would tell you, as you're starting to begin the process of searching for people to follow, really take a look at those bios and see what networks they're connected to, what organizations they're part of, because that will really help you craft and decide who the people you want to follow. So that bio is a really critical part of this.
A couple of things that were mentioned. I think it was Nancy that mentioned about different hashtags and different groups that you might be a representative for. This was just a screen grab that I took this morning of my bio, and I've got a couple of the hashtags and groups that I work with. As I mentioned, the Sunday chat that I helped to moderate. There's a click there, and then I do a lot of work with Gilder Lehrman. So. Again, it's a great place to put there. I also wanted to put a quick plug in that we are, a lot of us are tweeting at hashtag EduTwitter101. I believe that's in the chat room. And there's a lot lot of the nuggets that are coming out in this discussion are being tweeted out there. So if it's almost like going back and having the notes that you can refer to as you go. I know somebody else was going to talk a little bit about the work with the bios, and I think I cut them off accidentally. So
just something that I came across when I was at the NACE conference, the National Association of Education of Young Children. In the elevator going up and down one time, another group got in and said that they were really impressed with somebody just mentioning how they added to their Twitter bio and their email handle, she, her, just to give people that understanding of who they were, and so that they weren't the people, someone who might use they or them was not the only person using it, that they were modeling inclusivity. So I added she, her to my Twitter bio just because I wanted to model inclusivity and give people the way to address me so they know. So adding that, that little piece can also help with your communication as well.
All right, so yeah, so just some things to think about with the bio there, and once you've got that set up, then you'll be ready to start to actually send out some of those tweets. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about that. And again, I'm hoping that my fellow panelists will chime in here. Just for the sake of making sure that we're kind of all on the same page here, when you send that tweet, if you're using it on your phone, there will be a blue button in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's what you're going to hit, and it's going to pop up this screen that I've taken a screen grab from right here. You are going to have a character limit, and so you'll have to be mindful of that. And as you start to see different people tweeting, you'll start to see different kinds of shorthand that people use when they're composing those tweets. Your hashtags, if you decide to include those hashtags in your tweets, they do count towards your character limit. So that's something else to be mindful as well. If you are going to try to actually talk to somebody, so if I wanted to tweet at Gabe, then I would just hit the @ sign and then type in his Twitter handle, and then that's going to make sure that it goes directly to him. But once again, that will factor into your character limit as well. And then it will pop up a space down here at the bottom where you can insert photographs and of course, the GIF or GIF, however you wanted to pronounce it. I've become quite a fan of the well-placed GIF. And in fact, as we were coming off of our Zoom bomb, I shared one of my favorite GIFs from Ron Burgundy in the Edu Twitter 101 hashtag. So there's an example of one. Yeah. So going back to the panelists here, any other tips that you would share or potential pitfalls that you would bring up for some of our folks who are a little newer to Twitter?
One of the things I would add is I joke around all the time about, I think it's an occupational hazard with most of us that are teachers that we're like, verbose, like we just love to talk because it's what we do. One of the things that I've really appreciated about Twitter, and I was just about ready to tweet it out because Dave Hennel, I saw his comment come up in the chat box, and it's so important that when you're tweeting out information and you're sharing information, one of the things that it's taught me to do is that idea of quality information that you're sharing over quantity, because you do have that character limit in certain places. And I catch myself lots of times if I'm trying to tweet something and I'm kind of going on, and after I'm done with my thought, and I'm obviously gone past where I'm supposed to, I'm going back and I'm editing my thoughts and changing things and looking at the tweet again and going, oh, wow, I could have said this shorter. I could have said this better. I could, So I really think for me, one of the big benefits of being on Twitter, in addition to the relationships, is, going back, and it's really teaching me to be, a real critical thinker about what I'm writing and helping me to, to edit down information, and so that what I'm sharing is better quality. So when someone's looking at it, they're really getting the essence of what I want them to see, as opposed to like reading through something that's really long. And I actually think that's helped me become a better writer too, when I sit down to write things, because now I myself am not so afraid of word limits, because I have, these opportunities, if you will, to practice that. using Twitter. So I think that, in short, it's a great tool for teaching you as an educator how to really share quality information and be a reflective thinker in terms of protecting yourself.
I think it's important you also really, as you get started, consider what is your purpose for using Twitter. It's not just a cool tech tool or a social media tool, but what is your true purpose as you start? Is it to network? Is it to advocate? Is it to empower others? Is it, really consider what is it, because that will really refine and shape what it is that you put out there, that you post when you tweet or when you share information. It really kind of helps you decide what you feel like is important for you to tweet about. For myself, I use it as a way to social network, a powerful tool to engage other great educators, but also I use it as a powerful tool to engage with my parents. I let my parents follow me on Twitter because of this reason. I have it as a way for the kids or for the parents to be able to see where I stand in education. So if they're entrusting me to be helping and facilitating with their kids in the classroom, I want to be transparent about that as well. And so I really had to sit down and consider how I use Twitter before I just started doing and using Twitter. And I think that's really important for you as well.
I thought that Jennifer's comment about editing, I think it's important that everybody understand that Twitter doesn't it's not like Facebook where you can go back and you can edit a post that you've made. You can't edit your tweets. If you tweet something and then you realize, man, that was a really unfortunate autocorrect, you have to delete the tweet and then tweet it again. So I think that, along with the character limit, really making you think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, that reality also forces you to be a little bit more careful. And that took a little bit of time for me to understand. And now, I try to be pretty mindful of going back and rereading the tweet at least once, if not twice, before I hit that button.
I think one more thing too, when you're from a new Twitter person perspective, we're usually asking for help with something or trying to get more insight into an idea or a tool. And that's where you use those hashtags, because a lot of those expert people are following those hashtags actively and they see it pop up and they can ask. So it just widens your net for catching some good information by using hashtags in any kind of questions or outreach that you're trying to do. So I follow a few different ones and they're very useful, and I'll get to that a little bit later, but using hashtags in your tweets will just widen your net of information of people looking around.
Any other thoughts? Kind of curious if there was any questions from some of our newer Twitter users.
I was going to say kind of what Chris was saying, using those hashtags also helps you find the good people to follow. Definitely. That's where I find the people that I feel like I would never have come across who are like my favorites, the best information, is through the hashtag. So I would start there if you were brand new, if you don't know who to follow.
That's a great point. And your hashtags can also become a valuable, it's not just a search tool, but also a collection tool. I know that most of my classes have a hashtag for my AP Gov class. It's FHS AP Gov. And so, my students know that they can tweet to that. And then, if we go back to that, if there's something that we've shared or, a video or a photograph of us at the State House or something like that, they can always go back to that and find that record of that. So it's there's a lot of useful ways to use the hashtag. Okay, so this was something, and I'll share this later, and this might be a good opportunity for some of my panelists. I know Chris had some slides as well, but this is something that I gave to some of the teachers within our corporation as we did our Twitter 101, which is sort of an ease into Twitter challenge. Just like anything else, when you use it for the first time, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And that's, I feel like a lot of times where we lose people, they stop using a really valuable source because it can become so overwhelming. So this was just a little bit of a challenge that I gave folks week by week. And like I said, I'll make sure to share this out there when I'm done. But just starting small and making sure that you take the time to set up your Twitter. We talked about the importance of a strong bio and picking and choosing your pictures carefully, familiarizing yourself with some of these the basic vocabulary for Twitter, and then move on from that to finding those people to follow. And I know that when I got started, I was lucky enough to seize upon just really a handful of people that I trusted, that had the opportunity to hear speak. And so then I started to look at who they were following. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started to build at least the initial list that I had put together. So, that might be a nice place to go after you've got your Twitter set up, and then go from there to, just experimenting with some tweets. And, feel free as you do that to tweet to our hashtag. It'd be great to see some of the things that you're doing in class. And then, maybe after you've got all that done and you feel kind of comfortable, you can move into a Twitter chat. And I've got some of those Twitter chats to share here in a moment, but I want to stop and pull myself back and give everybody else's. What else do you think that we ought to talk about for people who are newer to Twitter before we move on to things like Twitter chats and stuff like that?
I just have a question as like literally a brand new person who set up an account years ago, but did nothing with it until finding out this morning I had one. Like, I'm looking more to just follow people right now. Not so much have people follow me but just to follow and get and increase my network. Like, how would when you're talking about, participate in a Twitter chat, would that go to the people that I'm following? Is that where I would participate?
So for me personally, Twitter chats are overwhelming and I can't handle it. And I've been on Twitter for a while and I just can't. If it's a smaller group and it's slow, I'm good with that. But if it's a lot of people and it's constantly boom, 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 I will go back later and read the chat. And I might reply to some of the things later, or I might just read it and pull from the information. Don't feel like you have to jump in with both feet and do everything, because I tried that one day and I about killed myself and my husband was ready to kill me. So don't feel like you have to jump into the Twitter chats right away or ever. You can always just search the hashtag later and read what people are saying about it.
Because I'm one of those people, when you're sitting, like, did you hit enter on your computer? Did you check to make sure it was plugged in? So, like, this is really a big step for me. So
and that's okay. Yeah. Just take it slow. Exactly what this slide says. Just take it slow and just watch and participate and lurk in the chats and just see what people are saying. You don't have to feel like you have to jump in right in the middle of a chat.
Okay.
You can wait till later and answer a question that you see in the chat or submit something then, because it's still there. It's not going away. So it's okay.
Yeah, and that's one of my tips too, is especially when you're starting, one of my bullet points was like, don't be afraid to lurk. You're just there consuming. You're taking it in. You're not providing anything yet. You're just there taking information on. And that's where you can just go to that chat and just watch, right, and read and see people's different reactions and see how it goes. And like Nancy said as well, a lot of the times I can't even make a chat. Like the SS chat, I would love to make all the time, but it's 4:00 my time. My class gets out at 3:55. So I just go back and search the hashtag and go back in time and follow through it. I can't really interact with it, but I can still take in all the information. And then one other piece of information or tip that I have is if a chat doesn't match with you perfectly, you could still do it. Like I still go, I'm not a TOSA, but I go to TOSA chat because there's all kinds of ideas just flying around pretty much for every single thing. So you don't have to find like a specific grade level chat or like a specific job chat like principals or lead up chat. You can just find any of these educational chats and you'll be able to apply something.
Thank you.
It will really also, you mentioned that you wanted to be able to build your network. Getting involved by following those chats or just engaging with them by just seeing what they're talking about, you will see people who are part of them and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great network of people. then you can go search and find them, and you can start following them. And what you've done is you build your network.
Yeah,
that was a great comment
actually
to follow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Bye, Chris.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna comment on what all three of you said, because, you know, being relatively new myself, like I said, I just kind of really got involved in Twitter in December, and I really that's kind of what I did. So, Colleen, you know, I commend you for just even opening up your phone or your device and just taking a look just to get started, because sometimes that in and of itself is a huge step, because it is overwhelming. I'm, you know, social studies teacher, and I teach middle school. And so my experience when I started on Twitter, the very first thing I did was I love the word lurking, because that's kind of what I did. I went to a social studies chat. It's like so amazing. It's such a great word. I went to a hashtag SS chat. That was my very first chat I ever did. And I didn't participate, really. I just kind of watched what people were talking about. And it was kind of like a watch and listen, even though no one's, you know, talking necessarily. But, you know, I kind of got an idea of what they were talking about and whether or not that particular network was for me. And I was, you know, reading what different people were commenting about with the various questions. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, yeah, I can relate to that, or I like that, or, you know, this person kind of thinks along the way, you know, along the same lines as myself. We've had similar experiences, or I can relate to that, if you will. And once you start looking and finding people that you feel like you can relate to, whether it's a chat or just an individual within a chat, you go and you look at that person. You can, you know, search out that person, like what was already brought up. You can read their profile, and then you can start to follow them. And even if it's one person, all of a sudden, as soon as you follow that person, you can start to see what they look at and what they're writing and what they're following. And then all of a sudden you could say, oh, well, this, you know, that person I started following, well, look at this person that also is talking on their wall. I like what they have to say. Maybe I'm going to look them up. I like that. Well, I'm going to start to follow them. And it's kind of, it goes a lot quicker than that eventually, because you all of a sudden start finding yourself in situations where you're finding yourself drawn to people that are a lot like you. And before you know it, you really have started to build a nice, small, cohesive network for yourself. And the other thing too is, through kind of lurking, you get to learn the lingo, kind of like the Twitter language, which is another thing that I kind of struggled with initially, because I didn't want to jump in on a chat and feel like I was an idiot. So, you know, I had to learn that, you know, for example, capital T, small s is teachers, and capital S, small s is students. And so you kind of, through lurking, get to kind of learn the language too, so that when you do decide you want to participate, you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident with what that looks like. So there are a lot of reasons why, you know, just doing what you're doing and taking that first step and taking a look at things that you're interested in are really important. You know, those are the important first steps when you look at starting to build a network.
Hey, Chris, I'm wondering, you know, in this discussion of organization and trying to kind of keep things from becoming so overwhelming, I wonder if this might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about TweetDeck.
Oh, okay. I think that's more of a expert tool, but I think I don't know, expert. It's just organized and it streams. I'll kind of show it to you.
Here, let me unshare my screen.
Okay, I'll get to it. I had to turn it off because it was beeping at me. So what I do is I also am in charge of social media for OCQ. So I'm on TweetDeck all the time. And it's really nice because you can schedule tweets. This is where, if you're looking at the screen and you don't know what the heck it is, it's like overwhelming, right? But if you just take it down to the essence of what it is, on the top here, this whole column is just EduTwitter 101. And it's following that hashtag. And anything that comes under that hashtag, anyone uses that hashtag, it basically it catalogs it in chronological order, right? So that's where we're saying when you can go back to a chat, you just look up that hashtag and you can read for days, right? So I can go to one of my other ones that I use a lot. I actually just had to redo this because I'm on Safari now. I don't have them up here. I could do it in a minute, but this is where you can there's this crazy PLN one here where you're seeing all these different tweets on a crazy PLN. I actually just learned about this today while we were talking about our presentation here. But you can see you could be under multiple accounts here as well. I'm on my Q one and my personal one. So it's just a way to be organized as well. And if anyone wants to add into that, go ahead.
It's definitely helpful when you're trying to do a chat, or if you're at a conference. I noticed in the chat somebody mentioned about using Twitter for conferencing when you're at a conference to share what you're learning, and I do that as well. And I have a column for different conferences like FETC or ISTE, something that I've attended, because the tweets sometimes go so fast for those hashtags that there's no way you can keep up with it. But I can go back and see 3 years ago and see what was happening and and find something I wanted to remind myself about and that kind of thing. It's definitely helpful for organization. And if you wanted to do a chat and they have posted the questions beforehand and you're a little worried about, keeping up with it, you can schedule your tweets through TweetDeck and put in the time that you want it to go out. Now, don't do like I did. I was looking at Eastern Standard Time, and the tweets were supposed to go out at like Pacific time. So I tweeted it 3 or 4 hours early. So make sure you got that one fixed. But yeah, and then somebody texted me and went, see, we're not even doing it right now. I'm like, oh, sorry. So I had to go back in and change the times. But that's another way where you can participate in the chat and answer the questions without feeling that pressure that, oh my gosh, I got to do it exactly at this time. Or if you end up leading a chat, this is another great way to schedule the questions so that you can pay attention to what's happening and be able to really get involved with it, depending on what you're doing.
Also, if you're using it for a class as well, like Kevin was saying, you can schedule these tweets in advance to what you're going to be discussing that day, and then you can have attachments to that as well. So it's just a good way to be organized, so it is not overwhelming. But when you first look at it, you're like, oh my God, what's this? And everything updates live, so it's like a ticker tape type of thing. But as long as you know which column is which, it's a really good way to stay organized and stay up with the chat. Anybody else want to add anything to this one? TweetDeck?
I'm actually, I want to compliment you guys. I'm actually learning about TweetDeck right now. I didn't really even know much about it. So even as a panelist, this just goes to show it's all about teachable moments. I mean, I think for me, that's one of the things that I've been so excited about Twitter the most is all the connections that I've made and all the learning that I've been able to do. I recently just gave an assignment to my students, and it was a collection of different things I learned on Twitter over the last few weeks from different educators. And my students, I mean, I have 1 week to go, and my students are turning in their work in droves. I haven't even really seen a drop off like many other people are seeing with the end of the school year and the grading policy that now got put into effect. And kids are in a position where they can make a choice. Well, I don't even have to do work if I don't want to because it's not going to hurt me. My students are still doing my work, and it's because they're interested and they're excited. And that's one of the best things for me, I feel like, is the fact that I've been able to make so many great connections and myself, still learn, because I think it's easy, especially in the environment we were in, it's easy to become complacent. And Twitter has really kind of reignited my excitement for really diving into education and testing my own limits, because you look around and see so much great stuff that other people are doing, and you're like, wow, I can use that, or wow, how can I use that? And so, but getting back to what you were saying, bringing the conversation back to here, I think that making sure in all that excitement that you don't get lost in the shuffle and you don't get confused is certainly important. So something like this is amazing. So I think actually I'm going to start to use this myself. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask another question?
Go.
Sure. Now you're saying about using for class, and would you recommend having just one account for everything, and then you could use the TweetDeck to separate it out, or having two accounts, one for your kids and one for other professional networking?
So another tool that is here, I don't know if you could see it, but underneath each one of these, maybe I could zoom. There we go. This is a different account for each one of these columns. Okay, because I have my OCQ account and I have my Mr. Coach Flores account. So you can have multiple accounts just on your TweetDeck right there. You just sign in simultaneously. So if you want to keep your class stuff separate from your educational Twitter, then you could have 2 accounts, but you could control them both here. If you want to have like your personal Colleen one, right? You want to have your teacher Colleen one, and then your classroom, you can have 3 accounts, right? And it can all be organized here in one sign in at once, and you can have it here. Or you can keep it separate and just go to twitter.com as well. Like I would personally keep my personal one totally separate, just so it doesn't get intertwined, because I don't want to tell a bad joke. Like, you know, it goes out to my whole network. Like that was meant for my buddies that I went to high school with. Right? So context is always there. So you can stay as organized here as you want, or you can jumble everything together.
And having separate accounts, again, I think it goes back to what you decide your purpose of using Twitter for. Like if you're considering it for your classroom, what's the purpose of it? That may decide if you, well, do I need to have a separate account for my professional one? You know, I have a couple of different accounts, one because we use it a lot for our track program. That's totally separate from my teaching professional one. So again, you have to kind of think about what you want to use it for.
Can I jump in about TweetDeck real quick? I'm sorry. I just want to, for people who haven't used it, one, if you have a GIF game like Jennifer or Gabe, you can't add GIFs inside of TweetDeck. So you'd have to like kind of download those, and then but you can add them as images. But one thing I want you to know is that if you schedule tweets through it, you can edit the tweets until you have an attachment. Once you have an attachment, you have to delete the entire tweet first. So just to save you some headaches when you're trying to figure that out, it's always good to kind of put your tweets out there ahead of time without images. You can add them later. I use it for scheduling all chats where I know either I'm doing a question or I know the answers. And then I usually open a incognito window or use my phone to kind of play around with the GIFs and other things. So again, just before it frustrates anyone, I want to put that out.
Cool. Since I'm sharing my screen, is it okay if I kind of pivot? Because I did this here, and I just wanted to show some of the people that I follow that are like some of the biggest sharers out there. And I did it for history. So these 3 here are like history. That's Amanda Sandoval. She's like the queen of slides, and we're making them awesome. And basically, I ripped off her distance learning path, and I've been using it for my distance learning, and she'll just share templates to everything. If you just go down her feed, it's Amanda Sandoval, History Sandoval. It's awesome. A second one is Stacy Young. She's also an oversharer, and they're like proud oversharers. And they have all these different activities. She is like a guru on digital breakouts. She's really good with organizing different ways to do DBQs. She did a whole session on it at CCSS and our Key Rockstar. Kevin Ruffton, I've never been to one of his sessions, but he's like the Disney guy. He does all kinds of simulations and templates and all that based off Disney and us, and just making his classroom magical is what he says. So this is here for you later to go follow these people. This one is like a need to follow. It's Slides Mania. They tweet out anytime they put out a new slide deck. Okay, Slides Mania is really pretty Google Slides that you can tweak and make your own. And they do all these different templates now. And I just followed these people maybe a month ago, and there's just a ton of information there. And then the last one is Kim Vogie. She's like the Edu Protocols guru, where you give her something you want to teach, and she'll throw out some sort of Edu protocol to do it. And those are those like canned lessons. It's basically like, what do you call those, jigsaw and stuff, but repackaged into digital instruction. So those are the ones that I really thought were valuable shares. People like line up to go see this guy's sessions. I went to go into CCSS and sit in his, and I got pushed out. And I'm a big guy. and I got like kind of bodied out of that room. So, so those are good follows, and that's all I just kind of wanted to share there. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna jump in and say that Amanda Sandoval is somebody that I follow also, and her stuff that she does. I mean, you're right. She's amazing in the sense that her willingness to share. And the presentation I was just telling you about that I just gave out to my students, there were a lot of things in there that she showed me how to do, you know. And when I initially went on and I was looking at all of her stuff, I was like, wow, this is so amazing. This is so exciting. Like, I literally got excited looking at it, and I'm thinking, how do I do this? The other thing that's great is when you find somebody like that who is a sharer, any type of sharer, and most people I think, who are on Twitter for the same reasons that we all are, you know, they want to share and they're willing to share. And so if you direct message them, which is another great feature of Twitter, if you have a question for anybody that you're following, you don't necessarily have to put the question in your feed. You can use the direct message feature, which is private, and that's great. You know, if you have an individual question that you want to ask them. And often people will get back to you, you know, at least within a day or so. And she was great in terms of telling me, you know, check this out, check that out. And, you know, made everything very easy. And I was so excited when I got done with my first project that came of the inspiration that I was getting from all these different places, that I started, I wanted to share it with my network on Twitter. And so I noticed other people were sharing slide decks, and I said, oh, you know, well, how do you do that? So they use something called Tall Tweets. And Tall Tweets is a great way for you to share your work. It's just talltweets.com. And it's a great way for you to share anything that you want to share and put it out there for people to take a look at. It's very easy to use. There's a tutorial on there. It was really easy for me to figure out how to do it. And when you see these beautiful slideshows that people are sharing, and you're wondering how they're doing it, that's how they're doing it. But, you know, looking at all that is, you know, it's a great way to just reignite your passion for what you're doing, because I think all of us right now are struggling with, well, how do we do what we were doing in the classroom online? I think that's one of the questions everybody's grappling with. And for me, a lot of the things that I was doing in the classroom, I found ways to reinvent doing them through looking at what different people were doing on Twitter and then putting my own spin on it. So, you know, again, Twitter for me has just been an amazing resource of not only relationships, but just the people that you find that are just passionate about what they do. So it's amazing.
To build on what you just said, I'm the only one of my kind at my school. We have, you know, 4 second grade teachers. We have, you know, a whole Hebrew department in the high school and a math department, and everybody has somebody, but I'm the only one who does what I do. I'm a specialist. I teach technology. There's nobody else. And I can go and ask somebody, what do you think about using slides to do this? And they'll look at me and go, yeah, because they have no idea what I'm talking about. So Twitter has become that for me. That's my group where I can go in and say, I can't figure out what I'm missing here. And somebody will tell me what I'm missing and figure it out for me, and then I can go and use it. So building that PLN for me has been invaluable because it's pushing me to do more. I could settle back and not try to do more because nobody knows what I'm doing anyway. So I could do my own thing and just coast along, but I'm not a coast along kind of person. So Twitter has been my place where I can find people to push me and to make me go, ooh, I want to try that too.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what has been said a couple of different times, you know, what I have really, really enjoyed about Twitter, especially, is the power of when someone shares their classroom experience or what's happening in their classroom or what they're doing, and then you do direct message them and ask them, hey, I would love to know more about this. And then they just share everything with you. You don't have this power where you can just literally network with anyone across the country or the world when you see the great stuff that they're doing. And they're just so willing to just share that with you. And Twitter has done that for me so much. And that's where I have found myself. I many times will share a story or something about a lesson or an activity that I'm doing in my class for the purposes of just say, hey, I've tried this and it failed, or I tried this and I had some success with it, to help add to that network. But I have picked, you know, Kevin has been one, I've picked his brain so many times about ideas or things. And that's where I would tell you, you can use this not only as a great networking tool, but also don't hesitate to reach out to those people that you see them posting great stuff and say, hey, would you share that with me? Because I can promise you, especially in the social studies profession, the more people will be willing to share their stuff for just simply the fact that they want to help the profession become better.
Well, and if I could just say one last thing too about being a new person on Twitter. I know I was talking about relationships before, but I think in the time that we're in especially, you know, people are really looking for other people that they feel they can relate to, that they can empathize with. You know, hey, I'm going through something, and, you know, like to Nancy's point, she's the only one at her school, you know, that's her kind, she was saying. So, you know, it's when you get to the point where you're on Twitter and you find like-minded people and you find those chats and you're building your network, you really do become like a family. You get to the point where if you're having a difficult day or you're struggling with something professionally, you could turn around and all of a sudden you figure out, well, hey, you know, these professional people that I love and respect, they like to go outside and go walking. I mean, I recently just joined, it's called The Walking Ed. It's a hashtag, The Walking Ed. And every morning they exercise and they post pictures of what they look at, you know, or what they're seeing along their runs or their walks. And so, and then they start to take you with them. You kind of feel like you're with them and you're going on this journey with them. And I know Dave Hennel's on this chat. I saw him a couple times kind of in and out of screen. You know, he's somebody else that I met through Twitter, him and Gabe around the same time. Just amazing people, you know, I mean, and if you're feeling like you have a great idea, whether you're struggling with something or you just want to share something, these people become your support network. And in some cases, your lifeline. And that's important too, because in the environment that we're in, where we're not able to connect in our school buildings every day, to know that you have this virtual family, this virtual network of people that are professional, and yet, you know, you can go out and you can still relate to them as human beings. That's really important. I think it's essential in the world that we're living in right now.
I just wanted to jump in real quick because I actually have to go here in a few minutes. And just wanted to remind, I put it in the chat, but both Chris and I's slides are available in the chat. So I know that it looked at least like some people were either tweeting on their phone or maybe even trying to write a few things down. But all of these things are shared in that, so you can check those out. Just wanted to share, I know that there were several questions both in the Twitter discussion and in the chat about favorite chats. These are some that I have been involved in, some more than others. And this is not by any means an exhaustive list. For example, I don't have the Crazy PLN up there. And so I apologize for that. I might ask Dave or Gabe to put when Crazy PLN meets. I can't remember if they have a specific meeting time or if it's more of a slow chat. But like I said, I help to moderate the Sunday chat, so it's somewhat biased, but I put that up there on first. I put most Sundays just because we do take a little bit of time off in the summer, but we will be back in August, and we'd love for you to join us. I know that chat is it's not just social studies; it's all educators. We also have a few parents come in. We have some pre-service educators that join us, and just each week we share out a topic. And then we sort of let it flow organically from there. But those are some different options for you. And then I wanted to real quickly also share some of my favorite follows, both people and organizations. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but you know, as I was sort of updating my list, I kind of went back and looked at who do I tend to interact with maybe the most, and these were some of the names that I put up there. Just a few that I would mention. Joanne Freeman, professor at Yale, pretty famous for her expertise with Hamilton. She has been partnering with NCHE to put together, it's every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a Conversations with Joanne. It's called History Matters, ... and so does coffee. And she just leads a discussion on a chosen primary source. I know that for me personally, you know, I've already had some lesson ideas that have formed from some of the things that she shared. She just recently shared a whole thing on gag rules and slavery in pre-Civil War America, and it was phenomenal. So that was awesome. And I learned about that through Twitter. And so I've got the tag here for NCHE and for Professor Freeman, because they put out the teases and how to go to access that presentation, and I definitely recommend it. And then also, Gilder Lemon, just put a little plug in there. They've got a lot of great stuff that they're sharing, and a lot of that they push out through their social media, especially their Twitter. Some of this is just free stuff that they're handing out to Twitter to teachers, and it's incredible stuff. So I would recommend that. I wanted to make a special mention of Joe Harmon down here. Joe Harmon was pretty instrumental in orchestrating the Social Studies Collaborative Drive, which is basically just a Google Drive full of stuff for social studies teachers. And they do also have a Twitter handle. I ran out of room, but you can usually access all of that from his Twitter page. And I mean, literally, you ask him, you say, hey, I'd like to be a member. And then you just got access to this Google Drive full of lessons from all matters of social studies. It's phenomenal. And we also encourage that we have people upload lessons that have worked really well to that. So I highly recommend that. If you are a fan of the movies, Jason Herbert down here is the founder of hashtag HATM, which stands for Hamilton at the Movies. But I think it's morphed more into history at the movies. And it's just sort of a chat. Usually every Sunday night, there will be a movie that they'll air. It's always a movie on Netflix. And then, people get on there and watch the movie and tweet back and forth with each other about connections to class and connections in history, what was real, what was not. And it's pretty phenomenal. But yeah, so these are some of my favorites. If you're looking for great lessons, especially in a distance learning environment, highly recommend iCivics. And they push out and pub out a lot of their great games and other lessons that you can use through their Twitter handle. So again, all of this is on the slides that I've shared in the chat in the presentation.
I also put a link in the chat to like a collection of educational chats. So that's sites. I'll put it in. I can put it in there again. It might have gone all the way to the top, but it's been useful for me as well, just to find a chat